we'll be doing the live post-game show from Sweet Fork Wilson's. It's our first ever remote post-game show. So come hang out with us, enjoy some good food. Hopefully we enjoy some good Browns football, and we'll have a live post-game show at the conclusion, starting at the 2-minute warning. And with that, we welcome in Zac Jackson to the show. Zac, how you doing today?
I'm good.
Zac, am I crazy with that scenario I laid out there? You know what? I know I am. But even at 60 and 200 pounds of black and blue bruise and scar tissue, I'm still watching this going, well, God, we suck just as bad as the Giants. Yeah. We can do it too.
No, it is totally fair to have watched the Browns these first 5 games and say it could be better, right? Like, there's clear deficiencies in scoring is the main one. But, like, things could have been different in little situations and in big situations. And they're headed for a 6th straight game of a different starting offensive line combination, right? They're headed for another game where you have no confidence in the receiving core. Yeah. You know, you trust the tight ends. But you're playing a Pittsburgh team. You're Detroit, London, Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's coming off a bye. And Mike Tomlin hasn't lost off a bye in 8 years and is 26-6 all time against rookie quarterbacks. And so history doesn't matter, right? But, like, you're not going to go there and throw 3-yard passes and beat the Steelers.
Yeah,
so something has to change, and we'll see.
Do you think they're going to? I like the way you put it, Jason. You said they're going to take some of the seatbelts off of Dillon Gabriel this week.
You kind of.
Do you buy that? Like, you open the offense a little more every week. Jackson Dart looked much different in the attempts that he had last night than he did in his previous.
Yeah, I think so, but I think there's 2 reservations with that. One is that offense is what Dillon Gabriel ran all spring and summer, right? And, you know, big moments in that game, the receivers just aren't there. That third down over the middle of Judy is one of the best throws he makes all day. It's a new set of downs. Right? They recover that fumble. How do you win? You win the turnover margin. They get a 15-yard penalty. They get put back to their own 35. If they're at midfield, they're going for it on 4th down. The whole play calling, the whole structure is different. Right? Instead, they're throwing the ball away on 3rd and 11, and they're giving up the winning touchdown to follow. So it's a chain reaction of things. Do I think Dillon did some good things? Absolutely. Do I think he'll be a little bit better just by natural process? Sure. Is it going to be enough to beat the Steelers? They have to win the turnover margin. They have to catch passes. They have to play near perfect from an offensive standpoint, and we just haven't seen anything close to that.
I've joked with guys, if they get a holding call, just punt immediately.
Just first and 25.
Just punt, because it's only going to get worse. This offense cannot overcome a hold. Right? Like,
well, then the defense pins its ears back, and they know.
If they are behind the chains, how often do they ever convert?
I think offense and defense, I think you're seeing a team play with such a small margin of error, and they're just the little details are killing them. Denzel Ward is awesome. He gives up one play. You know, he gives up the wrong leverage there. A little holding here. A 15-yard penalty after recovering a fumble, right? When the kicker trots out, are you 100% confident? No. Are they getting anything out of the return game? Like, the little things are just killing them. They need those little things to add up to hidden yards, to one big play, to all those things. They scored off the first turnover last week, and Judkins takes off again on a 60-yarder, and there's 2 holding calls.
Yeah, that's great.
Double the heartbreak.
What is the temperature in the locker room organization after the Flacco and Greg Newsome deal?
It's an interesting way to put it. I don't know what the temperature is, but it's certainly awkward because you trade a starter at 11 o'clock at night when the work week has already started. That's not going to go over well in the locker room. And when Jim Schwartz came out and started his presser yesterday and said, I watched the tape after the fact, like, he was making a point of, like, this was done. We have a defense that's good enough to win games, and we're trying to win a game as we are every week, and this is going on. Wow. It's not going to go over well. So there's shocking things that happen in the National Football League, and there's shocking things that happen even when by this organization's standards, right, are shocking. So you take a day and you move on. Maybe by Sunday they'll be fine. But it does create an environment where guys just don't know.
If they lose this game, I'm going to come in here Monday, and Bull's going to scream, fire Kevin, and Garrett's going to scream, fire Kevin, and I'm going to sit here and go, well, guys, the team's not very good. What'd you expect?
Yeah.
But the thing I guess, they are not operating like a team that is in danger of losing their jobs. They traded the veteran quarterback. They traded the starting corner. These are not things you do if you think you're getting fired this week or at the end of the year. Fair?
Has a coach ever been fired after a Steelers game?
I mean, when has a coach not been fired after a Steelers game?
It usually happens.
That list is shorter.
I would agree with that, Jason. I think that's a fair way to read it, specifically in that Jim Schwartz's defense, Tyson Campbell's supposedly a good fit for it. Like, you're already planning for next year. They had to be planning for next year. It's just the awkward timing of it. If you look at this from a paper standpoint, and so much of what they do makes sense on a paper standpoint, like, it's easy to lay out, right? They save money initially. They address a need going forward. I mean, this is a team that's only has 35 or so guys under contract for next year, right? So these decisions have to be made. And it's interesting, Jason. Every week I talk to my editor, and we say, we don't know what's going to happen, but what are we thinking for next week? And I said, well, to me, it's real simple. If they win, we're going to write about Dillon Gabriel. And if they lose, I'm going to list out the guys most likely to be traded or have the best trade value, whatever. Yeah. And Newsome would have been, obviously, in the top of that list, but how do you trade a starter? And then Flacco would have been 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, without actually laying it out. He's in the top 3 because he just doesn't have a contract. So him playing well maybe increases his trade value and maybe the probability, but we'll see. He did play really well. He does not run like he used to run. So that complicates everything with the transaction
it lessens
going
his
forward.
value, clearly, because they see it too.
Right.
I think I look at it, and the reason I say it, I would sit back and say, this is a circus. I'm going to sit back and just eat my popcorn. The thing about football is we can say that, all right, if this happens, then what do we expect? But the thing about football is once you get on the field and millions of people see it on Sunday and your owner is there and he's part of the Pittsburgh Steelers organization and people are human beings and get emotional. When you start to see you losing and if people start to feel like there's a slide and people are giving up or points are getting poured on you and this thing looks like it's slipping, it's very easy to say it now. But in the moment, in the minutia, I'm sure Jimmy Haslam has thought before, hey, I'm going to give Hugh Jackson some more years, Trzynski, hey, Pat, I'm going to give him a couple more years. But when you start taking them L's, you reevaluate very quickly. And remember, he's not the only one that is in his ear. There's other people that we don't know, the shadowy characters who have a say-so in what's going on.
Don't bring up that name.
I just said shadowy. I don't want to trigger you. But, I don't know too many people that can survive 3 and 28. Sure. That's tough.
Yeah,
I think it's a good point. Yeah, and it's a good way to put it, Garrett, because it isn't just the record. It isn't just what's gone on and who to blame. In December, when the Buffalo Bills are in that stadium and the Steelers are in that stadium, how does it look? What does the stadium look like from the owner's box? Right,
it's black and
yellow.
A
lot of yellow towels around there, and it's 33-10.
That hits the owner hard.
That hits the owner real hard. So we'll see. It's a long way from now, and all the things that can happen.
I looked at the schedule. It's like 7. It feels like we just started. It's like weeks away, Jay.
I know. It's funny because when you think of the end of the season, like I was looking at the Cincinnati game and I started doing the math on when Cincinnati could expect to get Joe Burrow back. My thing was, wow, we're gonna get to play against Joe Flacco, and then maybe not if Flacco turns things around and they're still in contention. The timetable on Burrow's return is December, so he could be back. So in some ways, that seems like miles away. But on the other hand, guys, this really rocks me when I start thinking about it. Like, we're a third of the way through the season after Sunday.
Yeah.
And I love the way you said it. Like, we all think we know what they are, but it's one thing when you go out and see it. Now you're like, any hopes we had of becoming, a surprise team are now gone. And then they let go of the rope. And then it gets really ugly really fast. And that's when owners, in my experience, tend to make those real quick knee-jerk decisions. When it's like you said, you might as well punt on 1st and 20.
Just punt.
It's like, someone slips under the water and you're like, well, I'm $130 and he's $3 bills. I ain't even going down there because I ain't dying with him. So it almost feels like that's kind of where we are right now.
I think across the league in a lot of places, probably more than not, teams on October 10th aren't what they thought they were for a variety of reasons. But when you look at the Browns, it's a really good defense and a really terrible offense. You're relying on rookies for reasons good and bad. So it's kind of, this is what we thought they were. So there is a long way to go, and each game will change it to an extent, especially because you've already made a quarterback change. You've already traded a defensive starter. You think you have a really good answer for the future at tight end, a really good answer for the future at running back, clearly the present too, right? But this is kind of what it is. And so that goes to the bigger question, Jason. Is this any different from what they were expecting? Did they ever intend to make any change?
No.
And I don't think they did either. No. But visually and record-wise, we'll see.
We told the story before, and I think you know who I'm talking about. I talked to someone who used to work there. He said he got a glowing interview, and 2 weeks later he got fired. But, I mean, that's how if you are Andrew and Kevin or whoever else, you are trusting Jimmy and Dee not to be emotional and overreactionary and stick to the plan.
I'd say keep your head on a swivel.
Well, sure.
Because that's a big leap of faith to trust in that group.
And again, we knew the first 6 games were brutal. Everybody knew it.
Yeah.
Everybody said, "Wow, they could be 0-6." Well, they might be 1-5. They might be 2-4 after those 6. And then I do think it was funny. You're saying, "What if they win Sunday?" If they win Sunday, everyone's going to look at the schedule and go, "Oh, here comes Miami. Win that one. Now you're 3-4. Now we're right back in."
We're Browns fans, of
Well,
course.
here's
That's
the only
what we
thing
do.
different about that perception. If you are 2-4, you're in it. No one thought that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody
We didn't know
expected
that
Baltimore to run
Baltimore
away
would-
with this division.
The division, which many
Yeah.
thought was going to be the most difficult, now looks like it could be the easiest.
It's a dysfunctional mess.
A not very good Pittsburgh team is sitting in the catbird seat right now. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I cannot, for the life of me, understand why the organization. They've made the decision as who the backup is. You're preparing what you have left of the week. You have to prepare for Pittsburgh. That means you have to get the number 2 ready and do number 2 things. They know who it is. Why won't they just tell us?
They live in extreme paranoia in almost everything they do.
We're going to find out sooner or later.
Right, and it's
find out
almost
today.
certainly going to be Bailey Zappi.
I would imagine
That's
today,
what we
right?
think too.
Why else would you even bring him to the practice squad? You had
Exactly.
6 quarterbacks on the 90-man roster. You have Deshaun in the meeting room every day. You had Flacco here, right? Why would you need another veteran from that group?
What does that
Especially because
say?
you love Dillon Gabriel for the reason that he kills it in the meeting room, that he learns the game plan in 2 minutes, that he does all these things.
Right.
Why would you need that unless
Yeah.
you are absolutely making commitment to Shedeur Sanders not playing by a certain point?
Yeah.
So maybe we're getting to that point, but I don't think there's no indication.
It
we're
would
getting
feel
to
like that would
point.
be later in the year, not earlier.
Correct, much later.
What does that say about where they are on Shedeur, that they brought Bailey in for this insurance policy, and now it seems like they're ready to cash in on that insurance
I
policy?
mean, we might be wrong here in an hour and a half when we find out, but it says a lot without saying a lot. Just like last week, like in London to Tommy Reese. Hey, what's the situation with the backup this week? Can Shedeur move up? Joe's the backup. End of answer.
That quick.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what it was.
If only they were all that transparent on all of that stuff.
I don't understand putting an arbitrary date on, okay, Shedeur is going to be ready November 18th or December 3rd. How do we know? How do you know?
Well, I don't necessarily think they are. I think it's more ballpark.
It's just the likelihood that spending more time in the meeting room, on the practice field, in the system, logic says he would be more prepared on November 10th than he is on October 10th. But you're right. There's no guarantee that there's a magic date and suddenly he's ready and they roll him out and the red carpet comes out and then they put him out there.
So likely this decision has been made, but maybe you can flip that into, okay, now we're dangling a real carrot in front of Shedeur, right? Now he's seen it.
See how he
he's closer.
responds.
So
And that's what he said yesterday. It's like you can see the light.
light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yeah.
That's the one quote that really sticks out of that.
Yeah, I
right?
thought
I
that.
just
thought
don't.
as well.
From the get-go, I just don't quite understand. I know that these guys got these Ivy League degrees, but this just seemed like regular. This should have been easy. Like, they started by saying it was a competition. Strike one. You shouldn't even have done that. You should have said we got 2 quarterbacks and we got some veterans, and left it at that and kept it real. Then you said, all right, we got Kenny Pickett. Now, if you really like Kenny Pickett, right? You really loved him. It didn't want to matter if he pulled his hamstring, right?
Just sit around and wait
Just
for him.
Wait till him get healthy and bring him on in. And then you trade him for the same thing you traded him for 5th round. Then you have Flacco. Okay. All right, well, let's roll with Flacco. So you got Joe Flacco. You want leadership. He flames out. And then you trade him in the middle of the year when you could have said, okay, you wouldn't have to worry about who's the backup if Shedeur wasn't ready. Because you could say if Dillon Gabriel didn't play well, you can always already go back to Joe Flacco.
And they had said that
and they
already,
said
that he was
right?
the backup.
And then you trade him midweek, and then
Right.
you're like, okay, Bailey Zappi. But Bailey Zappi's already been on the roster before.
Right.
And like his last 3 games, he's averaged 155 yards, 50% completion, and 7 interceptions.
Yeah.
So it's in practice.
Gee.
I don't understand.
I want to
where
counsel you on being a Browns fan. Okay? Here's my counsel to you. It took me probably 45, 50 years to learn it, but I've learned it. You're trying to apply logic to an organization that doesn't use logic. If you I looked at that just for fun yesterday. I said, I want to go back and refresh my mind on the dates of these things. When you go back and look at that on paper, it's laughable. In March or April or whenever, they thought Kenny Pickett was good. And then in August, they thought he wasn't. And then in May, they thought Joe Flacco was good. And now in October, they think he's not. And here comes Bailey Zappi again. And it's mind-blowing So don't try to apply logic to a franchise that is immune to logic, because what they do is it's
right.
You talk with your brethren. You guys talk with all the other beat writers. I remember what it was like for me when I would speak with folks that were covering the sport at a national level,
other places, right?
And I just remember. You always say this. Why would I watch other teams? They're able to throw the ball down the field and look like a real offense, but when I turn our team on, we don't. There's just so much evidence over the last 10 years in particular, but really 30, that we do it differently than everyone else. And I don't know if we're trying to recreate the wheel and solve an unsolvable Rubik's Cube, but what we're doing in our methodology is horrifically flawed. And the proof is in the pudding. When you talk to
only
beat writers, I know. I'm being kind. When you talk to someone, say from the Niners,
Right.
like, are they laughing as much at your stories about what the Browns do as we are? That we see it every day, or have we become immune to it?
I would tell you that Jason and I sometimes have to sit in Zoom meetings, and sometimes it's just emails or group messages about what you should be working on, what a trend. And I just say all the time, like, what goes on at these other franchises is not what we deal with here.
Yeah.
It's just not. And everybody, has a quarterback controversy every now and again or whatever. But the Niners go out and win the game with Mac Jones and no receivers, right?
Right.
Like Kevin O'Connell's got a backup left tackle with 3 other backup offensive linemen and Carson Wentz in there, and he's finding a way to put together the game-winning drive. So it's not happening here. Here's a scenario. What if they win on Sunday, whether it's an act of Mother Nature or just a complete domination, right? And they're in it.
Yeah.
And then you lose Dillon Gabriel, like high ankle sprain, celebrating the win.
Oh, that would be the most Browns thing ever.
Right? Like for whatever reason.
What do you do then?
Right? So, yeah, and then now you've given
Now I got to go trade for a quarterback.
everything that they've done. Yeah, no, right. Now you got to go get Kirk Cousins.
You give a fourth for Kenny Pickett.
Oh, my goodness.
Right. So, like, everything that they've done.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Everything that they've done this week just backs up what we've always known since May, since January. This year is about next year and the next few years. But with one more win, especially if it comes this week, you're in it. You have a season and you have a defense that believes that it's good enough to give you a
Mike
season.
has a question.
You just traded your starting quarterback.
Quickly,
4 days
Mike,
ago.
I just want to throw this out quickly.
Oh, yeah,
it might not
go.
be a quick answer, but try to answer it as succinctly as you can. We, as we try to do the autopsy as the patient is still alive, have been trying to diagnose or figure out for years, okay, what, who, because pieces change. New quarterbacks come and go, general managers, head coaches, all that. We've had a little bit of stability in the front office recently. But as you try to pinpoint why the Browns are the Browns, and I know it typically goes all the way to the top. Is it Jimmy? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can point to a cultural thing that would lead you to choosing the quarterback that you chose. That's why they are where they are now, right? Like,
Yeah, that's what put them back.
Every 3 years is kind of a generation.
And the guy they jettisoned is playing like a
and he needed to grow up.
Yeah,
but
he did.
Culturally, he wasn't fitting. He was clashing with the head coach all of the time. Right, there was
not good.
There were multiple divisions in the locker room based on Baker versus Stefanski, Baker versus Odell, and whatever.
Yeah.
And everybody has that stuff. You find a way.
It's how you navigate it, right?
And it was the timing. They didn't want to give him the contract. They thought they were right in that evaluation. At the time, they probably were. But their next steps were grossly wrong, and Baker has turned his life and his career around. The Browns aren't the only team that gave up on Baker. And as we sit here and point, let's remember, Baker deserves some of the blame for this. Jimmy deserves it, and Andrew deserves it, and Kevin, but Baker deserves it too.
I think, Zach, it's a study in, everybody matures at a different rate. I really think that what the lesson to be learned there is knowing when to give up on a guy because, that is baked into his DNA. That's his personality. And I honestly, if I'm being honest with myself and you guys, I thought that cantankerous, kind of abrasive part of his personality was baked into his DNA. So I made that decision too.
Sure.
Turns out that he's Baker now because of the humbling situation he went through in Carolina. And he may never have been that player here, but I think there's got to be a study and a lesson learned from when you cut bait on a guy and when you keep trying to be Father Flanagan and say, look, if you don't see this light, you're going to be bagging groceries. So it is what it is. Mike, I know you had one.
Yeah, Zach, you and I talked this morning, and you sent me the list of quarterbacks, and we kind of touched on it earlier, but I wanted to pull this up, and it's a two-part question, which I know is never a good thing. But do you have a favorite of these failed quarterback attempts on the road at Pittsburgh that you covered?
Not a favorite, no.
What is Dillon Gabriel?
I remember almost all of them, some of them well. Deshaun Kaiser would have won if Corey Coleman would have caught the ball.
Oh my gosh! I watched that game yesterday.
I forgot about that.
Bruce Gradkowski had no chance. Thaddeus Lewis is probably the one I didn't remember. I remember one of the Colt games. Obviously, John Manziel had no chance. They lost 30-0. Thaddeus Lewis is Baker's quarterback's coach now, by the way.
Small world.
Charlie never started in Pittsburgh on this list, but he was quarterback 9. He works for the Vikings now, so he was in the building last week when quarterback 41 started, and then he got traded in week 1, just like this year's week 1 trade. So there's all sorts of dots to connect here. So wanted to give them that list.
Yeah. So what's the blueprint for Dillon Gabriel this weekend to snap this streak, Zach?
Well, guys have to catch the ball. He has to get rid of it quickly. They avoid the turnover.
Guys have to catch the ball.
No, that's where we are.
The game plan.
You have one job.
Please catch
Receiver
the ball.
is in your job title. Like, just catch it.
Right. Just catch it.
Maybe, just maybe, this year is the year they take heed and they don't say we like our receiving room. Please don't say that out of
No,
your
I don't
mouth.
think they can even try
Please
to say
don't
that
say
at
that
this
anymore. By the way, let's throw another little smoke bomb in the room. Yeah, I am Big Circus. So what happens when I seen another Deshaun Watson video? Just dropped a new video.
I'm blocked, so I don't see those videos.
Okay.
But you see it.
Yeah.
I hear about it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Hey, so those videos are coming, and those are out there. And what happens when, all right, you got Bailey Zappi, right? And if Deshaun Watson in 3 weeks is, not available, but deemed to be off the PUP list, that means he has to be on the active roster. Is that correct?
If he clears, yeah. If he clears to return to practice, and then he shows in practice.
Who makes that decision? The team doctor?
That's a great question. Probably yes.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot more than 3 weeks if
Okay.
he's not close.
Yeah.
That I can tell you.
I would say that too, Zach. I know there's been a lot of excitement about the videos.
I wouldn't say excitement.
Yeah,
We're just
I
breaking
know.
news here. But here's
a
lot of
thing.
buzz
Not
about
excitement,
it.
a lot of buzz.
A lot of buzz, yeah.
Oh, here he comes. Everyone keeps saying, oh, he's going to complicate
I've
everything.
seen a lot of eye rolls.
Here's what I
around
say
the
to
videos.
that. Because you didn't see the video. The video shows him throwing the football out of like a 3-step drop. It shows him doing some footwork drills. What it doesn't show is, I think, more telling. It doesn't show him in full sprint.
Yeah.
It doesn't show him putting that foot in the ground and making a sharp cut. Because I love AI so much and I try to use it whenever I can, I did some AI work on this yesterday, and I asked, when did he have his surgery? January 10th.
Yeah, so we're exactly 10 months this
we're
week.
exactly 10 months. And I said, give me the average date of or length of rehab for NFL players, quarterbacks obviously included. I went with all NFL players, and I was kind of surprised by what it said. 339.8 days, which is 11 and a half months.
It's actually 9. We're at 9. January to October.
January 1st to October, or
Yeah, so
January
we're 9
10th
months. Yeah.
to
9
October
months.
10th is
9
right now. Yeah, 9. You're right.
Yeah.
9. I just don't. Now, AI is very good. It gave me an instance where someone came back in 5.5 months. So that's kind of the outlier, like the Adrian Peterson ACL
This
deal.
is also a twice torn now.
Yeah,
It's
is
a
double
twice
tear.
repaired. And aside from that, we think the shoulder shot. So I'll put it to you this way. If you had to bet the house, does Four ever take another snap with an orange helmet?
No, with a firm level of confidence, no. But do I
Really?
think the door is cracked? Yes, because
Okay.
it
Because
just
it's the
is.
Browns.
Yes, that's a
You have
fair
to throw
answer.
that qualifier in there.
So, the window is, he would get cleared, then he would have a 21-day practice window. And
Yeah.
at that point, they'd have to activate him, which doesn't mean, even if they do activate him, that
they'd
they
have
would
to-
put him on the field.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But there used to be a deadline for these things with PUP, NFI. There used to be like a week 11, week 12 deadline. There's not
anymore. Yeah, right,
So this
yeah.
could go into December.
Okay.
So if December we're at 11 months, December 15th we're at 11 months, and they say he can practice, then he gets up to 21 days. And the team can drag that out. So
Then
January
quickly-
6th is going to come, or 5th, whatever the day is,
Yeah.
right, is going to come probably too soon.
One last question on that. How does the Deshaun Watson saga end? Because he still has next year on the deal. He'll clearly be healthy by the start of next season. Do they release him? Do they pay him to go home? What do they do with him?
Most likely they release him. They do a post-June 1. They accelerate all the money, and they just move as much dead money into next year as possible and be bad again next year. That's what this all roads lead to this long-term. All roads lead to Brook Park, right, which is 4 years from now.
That's what Jay keeps saying.
But all
2028,
roads
That's all they
lead
care
to
about.
this.
You have to have a product on the field that you can market
nasty.
and sell.
From a business standpoint, what I would caution Jimmy on, you're going to ask much higher ticket prices in this new Disneyland that you might have Browns fan fatigue to the point then where I've already talked to people in the last month that said, I'm not renewing my season tickets for next year.
Right. You're 100% right, Jay, but there's one antidote. Draft the right quarterback. People are right back on board. Find the right quarterback. And
but at this
that's
point,
what you have to think they're working on day and night.
I know, but I have to rely on the same people that have gotten that wrong 6 times prior to get it right all
Mike's going to tear his rotator cuff rapping.
Yeah, he's rapping.
But real quick, I got to say, I said on Monday, I said again earlier in the show, if you want to fire them, if Jackson Dart works out, that's enough reason to fire them. Is that true? Or false?
It's in the neighborhood of true. It is, because that has to be your priority, right? He played on the Senior Bowl team with Bubba Ventrone. You knew all year he was the guy. Kevin was. They don't go to pro days because they have their own way of doing things. Kevin was there. One pro day Kevin has been to. It was Jackson Dart's.
Hey,
right?
is Jimmy still on the I'm going to find my next quarterback tour? Because we know he jumped the plane early in the season to go down and watch.
That's a great question. I mean, who do we know in Eugene tomorrow? That's where the game is.
Yes, that's where he would go, right?
Mendoza, yeah. I doubt it, Jay. I think that just happened to be Labor Day weekend. He's a close friend of the Manning family. They were playing 2 hours from home, and then he went.
I hope so.
He was credentialed for those other games. We don't have any proof that he was actually there for those other games that weekend. But it did set up, right? The Buckeyes played at noon. LSU, Clemson played at 7:30, and the next day South Carolina played in Atlanta at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, so it did make sense.
It just all kind of set up.
But I, for one, am full-throated opposition of I'm gonna find the next quarterback tour.
Right.
I don't need that.
That's right.
I don't. That might be my cutting point.
It's all of these scars, though, that shape the optics of all of this stuff.
You're right.
Everybody's like, there's no way. The one way they can get the equity is fire everybody and let a new set of eyes do it.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen? I don't know. I lean towards no right now, but it is only October 10th.
I'd lean more towards selling it and letting someone new try.
That's never going to happen.
We deserve that.
That's
No, it's not going to happen now
not
because
gonna happen.
Brook Park, like that, we're stuck.
They don't need the money, so they got no reason to sell it. They bought it for $1 billion. It's worth 6 times that at minimum, but they got no reason to sell it.
And we just keep supporting the trash. We just keep buying it because we're hooked.
You'll be right back in the third quarter Sunday.
Listen, I'll be at kickoff. At kickoff, I'm like, let's go, baby.
All right.